Hello, it's Josh Bloom, and if you're hearing my voice right now, then you found the new standalone podcast feed for 1,461 Days of Ignoring the Trump Administration, officially titled 1,461 Days of Ignoring with Josh Bloom, because I got sick of seeing his name next to my face so often. This is the series in which I endeavor to remind myself and you, if you feel like it, to remain mindful, optimistic, and hopeful during these challenging 1,461 days. As I explain on the main feed of the Josh Bloom podcast, all future weekly compilations of my daily 1,461 Days of Ignoring the Trump Administration posts will now live here, so we can keep the politics of my personal life and the politics of our collective public life separate. I apologize if I just put that Keep 'Em Separated song by The Offspring in your head. I'm not really a fan, but please take solace in the fact that we are now equally unable to eradicate it. Perhaps I can help by suggesting a much better song about separation, Go Your Own Way by Fleetwood Mac. How's that? This weekly podcast compiles the audio from my daily posts in the series. If you want to watch those posts in real time, you can do so on YouTube, Instagram, Substack, or TikTok if you're nasty. Speaking of Substack, if you're not already subscribed, head to superjews.substack.com. That's superjerjews.substack.com. I post additional content there that isn't available elsewhere, including the newsletter that functions as an essential visual accompaniment to the latest episode of the Josh Bloom podcast. It's essential. Episode 60 is out now. And speaking of now, let's get into 1,461 Days of Ignoring the Trump Administration. This is days 306 through 312. This week on the show, on day 306, I follow up some anti-capitalist rhetoric from the previous 2 days by trying to sell you something. I wrote my first book, a bio on the iconic indie pop psych rock band The Apples in Stereo, which was just published by J-Card Press. If you like the way I frame the political world here, then you will like the way I frame the music world there. At the risk of sounding hypocritical when it comes to capitalism, I recommend choosing your preferred retailer at applesbook.com. On day 307, we turned 21. I don't even remember turning 21 because I left home at 18 and was already deep into the kind of trouble that less damaged people wait until 21 for. I remember 21 on this day, however, because we are now 21% through 1,461 Days of Ignoring the Trump Administration. I speculate, based on accidentally seeing yet another troubling photograph of the leader of the Trump administration, that I might end up having to retitle this series before we even get to 22%. Day 308 is Vocabulary Day. I discussed the word churlish, which is a word I use to describe the leader of the Trump administration. I wonder if he knows this word. Somehow, I doubt it, but it is a perfect word to describe him. Listen and find out if you are not already familiar. Since this day also fell on the first Monday back to work after Thanksgiving, I offer some words of encouragement as well. Churlish is not one of them. Day 309 is dedicated to the topic of fighting with family at Thanksgiving. Unfortunately, it is essentially a cliche at this point that families have become bitterly divided over politics. On this day, I suggest ways in which those who are dwelling on the aftermath of those arguments can consider these situations from perspectives that allow us to persevere with purpose. I believe that anyone who has fallen victim to this current climate can recover. On day 310, I address a commenter, which frankly I am going to have to do less of because TikTok penalizes me for that, which you will hear more about on day 311. I get pretty heady with this commenter and claim that free will does not exist. I go on to explain that every moment of my life and his has led to this meeting. It is pretty magical, I'm not going to lie, and that's why I managed to squeeze in a reference to R2-D2 and suggest that this commenter and I may cross paths again one day on the planet of Tatooine. As mentioned, on day 311, I take to referring to the series you are listening to now by a new, non-threatening name. 1,461 Days of Ignoring Someone's Something. Apparently, the pending exchange of ownership hands by TikTok has triggered a ramp-up of methods to keep the leader of the Trump administration from having his feelings hurt. Of course, this could be my own paranoia, and as a stalwart advocate of the arts, I ceased my self-censorship the very next day. Today, though, you can share in my frustration. On day 312, I go right back to goofing on the subject in question and the inherent hypocrisy of referring to Joe Biden as Sleepy Joe while we watch Donald J. Trump sleep through a cabinet meeting that he himself called. Would you do this? No. You have too much dignity. Of course, hypocrisy is a way of life for people like these, but I do wonder why no one simply says, hey man, it's not like you or I care because we are here to do damage anyway, but maybe we should come up with an alternative plan to go with our alternative facts that might include not sleeping on camera? It's a jam-packed week of upending the country. Enjoy, and I'll be back afterwards. Day 306 of 1,461 Days of Ignoring the Trump administration. I am not a self-help guru. I'm just trying to help myself. You might find what I am about to say kind of weird. Following 2 days of anti-capitalist rhetoric from me, I am now selling a product to you today on Black Friday. I am selling a book. For all of you indie rock fans watching this now, you can pre-order the book I wrote about the band The Apples in stereo directly from my publisher or from your preferred and suspicious online retailer of choice. You may ask yourself, Josh, you dirty hypocrite. Yesterday, you talked to us about not shopping on Black Friday, and here you are insinuating we should be shopping on Black Friday. Well, look. I am not trying to assert that we should no longer play a role in the society that we must play a role in order to survive. What are we, going to be like Christopher McCandless in that movie where he goes and lives on top of a VW bus and rots in the woods? No. Into the Wild, starring Emil Hirsch and directed by Sean Penn. I know what it's called. I am saying what I've been saying all along. To be mindful, optimistic, and hopeful, and part of being mindful is being aware of when we are playing our role and how playing our role affects the world around us. If you buy my book, I believe you will be entertained by it and enjoy a few hours, depending on your reading comprehension level, which frankly might have more to do with my writing style than any fault of yours, away from the nonsense of the world as you read about the nonsense of other people's worlds. It is good to contribute to local businesses like small publishers who take risks on writers like myself. Or you can use that money to support another business near you where you can buy products directly from the people you are supporting. When we are buying from giant retailers trying to grab every single cent that we have scraped together, we are not seeing the people we are supporting, and frankly, those people don't want to see us. Do you think that the leader of the Trump administration would ever invite you to one of his disgusting get togethers at Mar a Lago where you know those chandeliers are caked with dead skin cells piled up on them from years of rotting corpses that attend those death fests? These unethical business people do not deserve for us to support their corporations. Spend your money locally or on my book and ignore the Trump administration. Day 307 of 1,461 days of ignoring the Trump administration. I am not a self-help guru. I'm just trying to help myself. Do you remember turning 21? I don't. I don't remember turning 21 because I was already out of the house by the time I was 18 and already into all sorts of trouble that a lot of people save for the age of 21. But I will remember 21 today because today is a historic moment. We are 21% through 1,461 days of ignoring the Trump administration. Now, I do not pay attention to what is going on with the leader of the Trump administration and the Trump administration, but I do notice from time to time as I scroll through social media certain photographs. Now, I won't show you the shot I saw this morning. You can look it up. To preface the results of your search, I will say this picture might be a freeze frame of the leader of the Trump administration leaning in while talking to someone and blinking. Sure. You may remember a song by the singer named Jim Croce, a very beautiful song called Photographs and Memories that went, photographs and memories, something, something, something you sent to me. When I see a photograph of the leader of the Trump administration with a slack jaw that is looking like it is about to drop some quite cruel drool, I think of that song, Photographs and Memories. Except I think photograph and no more memories. And while I am not the kind of person that is ageist, I am the kind of person who is a realist, and a realist like myself tells me that we might not get to 1,461 days of ignoring the Trump administration. I might have to retitle this shit 1,461 days of ignoring some other administration. In the comments, many will say, oh well, that administration will be the current vice leader of the Trump administration's administration. Well, I don't know about that either because, frankly, he is a very charmless man who may not last very long in that position either. Impeachment's a thing, especially when the opposing party controls the House of Representatives, and if the vice leader is impeached, well, the Democratic speaker becomes president. All of this being said, let me remind you on the day that we celebrate 21% of 1,461 days of ignoring the Trump administration that we should remain mindful, optimistic, and hopeful for the better days that are to come and the perspective we will have gained from struggling through this together. Some may see this day differently, and I respect their interpretation. Carry on and continue to ignore the Trump administration. Day 308 of 1,461 days of ignoring the Trump administration. I am not a self-help guru. I'm just trying to help myself. Do you know the word churlish? I'll get back to it. Do you know what the worst feeling in the world is? Well, you are probably feeling it right now, and no, it's not because you're seeing me. Only a hater would say that, and we don't hate around here. The worst feeling in the world is going back to work on the Monday after Thanksgiving. Those days off are so delightful in that we all agree that we are allowed to use that 4-day weekend as we wish. Even if we are forced to deal with family, we are at least rewarded with a decent meal, which makes returning to life as a pawn on the chessboard of late-stage capitalism in America so painful. You might feel like, what am I doing this for? Well, here I am, Josh Bloom, on day 308 of 1,461 Days of Ignoring the Trump Administration to remind you what it is for. It is for a blue sky. It is for a flower. It is for enjoying the first moments of snow illuminated by a streetlight at night before they accumulate and turn into a dirty dog piss covered mess. We are human beings, but we are also just beasts walking the earth, trying to integrate ourselves into an organization that is not of our making. The reality is not organic. It is not natural to who we are as animals. We have submitted to it in order to exist together for the few years that we are here. There is a song that goes, "Cherish is the word that I use to describe her." In this case, I say that her is personal freedom. We are merely playing a role, and it is okay to play that role because it is the bargain that we have entered into as willing participants in the experiment of modern society. And in keeping with the norms that we have arrived at in modern society, I will acknowledge that the chosen pronoun of freedom is her. Now, if the lyric were churlish is the word that I use to describe him, then that lyric would not be referring to freedom. It would be referring to the leader of the Trump administration, since the definition of churlish is rude in a mean-spirited and surly way. If you are suffering the back to work blues today, put on the song Cherish to cheer you up and enjoy the fun coincidence of the song being by a group called The Association. Listen and ignore the Trump administration. Day 309 of 1,461 Days of Ignoring the Trump administration. I am not a self-help guru. I'm just trying to help myself. Did you argue with your family on Thanksgiving? It is almost a cliche at this point that when we get together with family, there will be some political arguments, and never have the political arguments been more intense than during the tenure, the very, very tenuous tenure of the leader of the Trump administration and the Trump administration. But for those dwelling on the aftermath of those arguments, I suggest you revel in them. The reason I suggest you revel in them is that if we think about it, we realize we are arguing with someone, or unfortunately, in many cases, someones, who, like the tenuous tenure of the leader of the Trump administration, have a tenuous tenure with the truth. The tenuous state these loved ones exist in that allows them to persevere is just like the state of mindfulness, optimism, and hope we exist in that enables us to persevere. One treat that the leader of the Trump administration and the Trump administration have brought to many, many millions of people is purpose. Kind of like that Justin Bieber song, album, and tour called Purpose, but with far less abdominal tone. These loved ones feel emboldened, they feel satisfied, and they feel alive in their devotion to the leader of the Trump administration and the Trump administration, and I find that somewhat charming. Now, while many do not find it charming because they find it scary, they find it dangerous, they find it abhorrent, feelings that I can completely understand, I believe that we will survive this moment in history and be better for it. Those loved ones who find purpose in their unquestioning loyalty to the leader of the Trump administration and the Trump administration will come out of it with a greater sense of what it feels like to have a reason to live. They may apply that newfound resolve to something more productive than defending a man who would never, ever, 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 ever defend them. That's my quick little note about Thanksgiving arguments, accompanied by a post-Thanksgiving argument management argumentation. Please continue to ignore the Trump administration. Day 310 of 1,461 Days of Ignoring the Trump Administration. I am not a self-help guru. I'm just trying to help myself. Commenter Zach12202 has confronted me today with the following comment. Ignoring it, but feels the need to make a post about it. Sounds about right. Well, Zach12202, your comment seems sarcastic to me, which is not unexpected because I have received this sarcastic comment many, many times during the 1,461 days of ignoring the Trump administration. Your sarcasm is irrelevant, however. What is relevant is your claim that I quote unquote need to make a post about it, because in that case, you are absolutely correct. Zach12202, I needed to make that post just like you needed to make that comment. You see, Zach12202, we have no free will. You and I have been on a collision course this entire time through our entire lives. And this course of collision accelerated during 1,461 days of ignoring the Trump administration. Zach12202, we were always going to arrive at this point. And now, here we are, you and I, today. You made the comment you needed to make, and now I made the response. When you said it sounds about right, it was as if you were actually foreshadowing your existence right now at this very moment as you hear me responding to you. It is as if the deep crevices of your brain, not a smooth brain, a deeply creviced brain, is finally figuring out the information it was always destined to deduce. My response to the comment that you were always going to make, that you were born to make, Zach12202, will always live there. The deeply creviced brain of Zach12202 has been infiltrated with the voice and the words that originally sent signals to your thumbs and allowed our lifetime journey towards this meeting to manifest. I can't help but feel a kinship with you, Zach12202. In fact, your name, 12202, reminds me of childhood and the droid R2D2. Boop, boop, beep, beep. You probably know what that means better than anyone. I can't help but wonder what the future holds for us, Zach12202. But for now, let me leave you with this proclamation. When we cross paths again, perhaps on the planet of Tatooine, I hope you will be continuing to ignore the Trump administration. Day 311 of 1,461 days of ignoring the someone's something. I am not a self-help guru. I'm just trying to help myself. That's right. I said ignoring the someone's something. It has come to my attention that the leader of the someone's something is suddenly more sensitive than ever. And so I am going to have to become more creative than ever in order to continue to speak about the subject of this series. Apparently, the subject of this series has allies within the corporate structure of the social media app named after the sound a clock makes that are willing to coddle his very, very hurt fifis. As you can see by this screenshot, I have tested out a few different means by which to deal with this situation. Now, I personally do not believe I have ever used the leader of the someone's something in any negative light, but an algorithm does not notice that. An algorithm does not detect sarcasm. An algorithm does not detect tone. Do I have to step around this attempt to thwart the mindfulness, optimism, and hope that I am presenting here on 1,461 days of ignoring the someone's something? Do I need to protect you from the simple message of encouragement, love, and solidarity that I am expressing here today on day 311 of 1,461 days of ignoring someone's something? Are we not mature enough to discuss the leader of someone's something and the someone something? I think we are. I would hope that you could continue to be able to receive these messages, even though I have to shroud the subject that the message is based around from being explicitly named. But I don't want to take that chance. Ultimately, I have decided to deal with this situation by continuing to do exactly what I have been doing. In keeping with my ideology of mindfulness, optimism, and hope, I refuse to believe that nefarious actors would try to suppress our free speech, even though there is so much evidence to the contrary. Thank you for your attention to this matter, and for all the matters that these unnamed people will surely bring. Stay mindful, optimistic, and hopeful, and continue to ignore someone's something. Day 312 of 1,461 Days of Ignoring the Trump Administration. I am not a self-help guru, just trying to help myself. Have you ever called a bunch of your coworkers in for a meeting and then started the meeting and then fell asleep during the meeting? Well, why not? The leader of the Trump administration can do it, so why can't you do it? Oh, it's because you have some dignity. Now, if you haven't heard about this already, it's not the first time he's done it, but you may think to yourself, wow, he is still constantly referring to Joe Biden as Sleepy Joe. How hypocritical. Well, this isn't anything new. Hypocrisy is part of the built-in programming of the leader of the Trump administration and the Trump administration, so I'm not pointing out hypocrisy. What I am pointing out is another phenomenon called projection. Projection is when you accuse others of doing something that you objectively do, and the reason I'm calling out projection is because I don't do that. I don't call people out for doing something I do because I don't want to be accused of doing whatever I did. Another reason I do not judge people for their bad behavior is because it is a good rule of thumb to live by. If I don't approve of someone's behavior, I either stop associating with them or I ask to take them aside and have a discussion like an adult. For instance, I would appreciate it if someone came up to me and said, "Hey, Josh, you did this or you did that, and I wanted to tell you personally how it affected me." I would respect that person for taking the time to help me out. Someone could come up to the leader of the Trump administration and say, "Hey, Donald, it isn't the best look in the world to sleep through the cabinet meeting. I understand you're tired. I understand you're getting older. I understand that you want to give off this image of a guy who is full of energy. I get it. Maybe we could figure out a way to work around sleeping through the cabinet meeting so that you don't seem like a hypocritical mess." That would be a nice thing to do in private in a government that respected the citizens of the nation. But that's not going to happen, and so we must continue to ignore the Trump administration. Hey, it's Josh. I'm back. Even though I never really left because you were listening to me about 3 seconds before I said, "Hey, it's Josh." If you get a chance, look up that footage of the leader of the Trump administration sleeping during his cabinet meeting. It is quite reassuring in the sense that we will get through this naturally, if you know what I mean. Thanks again for listening. Please leave a 5-star rating for the 1,461 Days of Ignoring with Josh Bloom podcast in your podcast app, and leave a comment saying that you like the show. If you do not like the leader of the Trump administration, I can't stop you from saying that too. It's on you. Please tell a politically curious friend about the show, and while you're at it, please follow me on all of my social media by going to superjews.com. That's superjews.com, where you will find the links you are looking for. Lastly, if you'd like to throw some support to me and the show, please subscribe to my Substack at superjews.substack.com, or you can buy me a coffee. For a mere $3, you will earn my undying gratitude, or at least enough gratitude to last until I ask you to buy me a coffee again. Go to buymeacoffee.com/Josh Bloom. Please don't forget what this show is for. We are in trying times that try to take our time away from what is important. I try to reclaim that time and regain my mind in order to stay mindful, optimistic, and hopeful for myself and the people I love. I am glad you are here every week with me. See you next time, and until then, remember, I am not a self-help guru. I'm just trying to help myself. Bye.